So, how's everybody doing? You guys have a good weekend? Everything went good? You're all here, or most of you are here. So, I guess you survived. Let's see. So, we are in our, oops, I did this backwards, but okay. We are in our second to last week. So, we're getting, hey guys, we're getting very near the home stretch. So, what we're going to do is, on Wednesday, I'll have a review guide. It'll be kind of simple, talking about what to plan for the next week. And then all of next week, I mean, really, it's just all of Monday of next week. We're just jamming through review, making sure you understand exactly what you need to do for the final, okay? Because the final, you'll have both a written exam and a practical exam element. So you'll have to be able to answer questions in the written form, and you'll actually have to show me that you know how to do some fairly basic steps, stuff that you've done before. If you have not, if you have missed class, maybe you can get notes from somebody. Today is going to be, or this week, should I say, is going to be a little different because of the task at hand. So, again, if you jump onto the MCL server, download the Star Trek Into Darkness session, put it on to your particular drive, and then you can open it. If you opened it and it messaged you about the video missing or some sort of thing, ask it to automatically find and relink. For some reason, mine on my computer was working great, and when I opened it up here, it was a little weird. But, so this is what we're going to do. So this week's project, this is the last project of the semester, so congratulations, is to generate a short and fairly simple composition for a movie trailer, okay? Now the movie trailer, the video has already been, in this session, has already been imported, and there is what we call a temp piece of audio. So like the music that's in here is a temporary piece of audio, and in most cases when you're building compositions for a movie trailer, you don't get bare bones by itself and they just say do what you want. A lot of times what they do is they'll send you footage and they'll have the lock picture and they'll say, we're going to send along a temp piece of audio, and this is what we kind of envision, okay? Now, the downside to that is a lot of times the temp audio comes from somewhere else, and sometimes the people that want the trailers done are really stuck on the temp audio. So, like, maybe they brought in a Nine Inch Nails song as their temp audio, and they really want this Nine Inch Nails song, but they can't have it, obviously, because they can't get it licensed. But they want you to do something much like it, which may put you at odds with the ability to generate something that sounds like that. In this instance, I'm going to allow you guys to be freely creative. The only thing that's very specific that I loaded up into the session in order to help you best navigate this is I actually I pre-built the tempo map. So, sorry, I'll zoom. Actually, I'll expand this a little bit more. So what happens here in the green is I built a tempo map that allows the click track in certain selections of the scene to actually slow down. That's what you see this kind of these breakpoints falling. The original tempo starts at BPM quarter note equals 56, and what happens here? What happens here is right here at this transition at about the 22-second mark, you see each one of these fall. What happens is in the visuals, to kind of keep it from being so static, I just mapped out tempos that essentially decelerate into these transitions so that they can get a little bit more of an elongated pull. Downside to how a lot of trailers and most video clips are seen is they are outside of the standard conformity to tempo. So like if I'm a musician making a video edit, I'm going to use music, I'll map it to tempo. If I had no music, I might just map it to tempo, all my cuts. But if I'm just a video editor that doesn't really necessarily have that in mind, I'm going to make my cuts the way I want to make my cuts, right? And I'm going to leave the composer to kind of hash out the details. And that's kind of how they do a lot of these trailer pieces, is they're very freely flown. So what I did is I mapped these out to these essentially match. And the BPM is going to match frame movement. So you'll see the BPM will match actual frame movement. What happens in the middle, so this is how long is this clip? The clip's about a minute and 12 seconds. And about halfway through, you see a huge jump from BPM equals 56 to 114. And so you'll see where this transition makes sense when you watch it for the first time. But our goal today, so we're gonna do this in 2 parts, okay? So our goal today is to set up the bare bones and the skeletal structure of what we're gonna do musically. Now, out of a show of hands, how many of you are musically inclined? Show of hands. Okay, so about half the class-ish, right? What I'm gonna do for this, because again, I still wanna be somewhat task-oriented, is I'm gonna walk you through step by step, and I'm going to give you a guide, particularly for those of you who've never done anything musical before. That way you have some sort of framework to work from, and we can literally go step by step and build along the way. For those of you who are more musically inclined, feel free to take any absolute liberties that you like in the creative process. Now, I want everybody to be creative, but I also don't want anybody at the end of this week going, I never figured out how to do anything at all. So what we're going to do musically is we're going to build virtual instruments, and we're going to just set up some basic structure of those virtual instruments to follow this track. Now, the good thing is we have some tools we can use. We're going to be able to use things like quantizing and being able to do multi-layer recordings. But the biggest thing we're going to focus on first is we're going to watch the clip. I'm going to explain the clip. We're going to build some very scarce, very slim elements. What I like to do when I'm composing is 2 things. Either one, go with bare bones and just pick out some instruments that sound good and focus on just a handful of them. And then as things progress and I like what's going on with the melody and the structure, after that I go into the arranging phase and I start breaking that out and taking those parts and mixing them up between more instrumentation. So like, I'll start with the first phase of maybe 5 or 6 instruments, and if I like the core, then I can start expounding upon that and putting it on different instruments. Problem with doing that first, using 20 instruments early, is you may not like what you've done at the end of your time with those 20 instruments. Where if you do it with a slim group, you can at least play through it and go, do I like this? Do I want to change things? And to change things or do something different is a lot faster with a smaller group of instruments. And then, of course, I also like to, personally, so I'm going to have you guys kind of start on this, but again, if you feel like you're more advanced in the musical element, you can feel free to start with different instrumentation. I like to start with instruments that sound good. Unfortunately, we have a limitation on the instrumentation that's built into Pro Tools here in the lab. So what I like to usually use is something that's somewhat fulfilled. So I like cello and viola. I don't know if you guys, anybody has ever played string instruments before in the string realm, but we're going to build this as more of an orchestral movie trailer. Violin is unfortunately, it's very screechy and it's very thin unless it has supportive elements to really fill it out. Violin's perfect because it can soar up above the frequencies that are being used in the other ranges. But a lot of times if you start with violin, a lot of people only start with violin because it's the first thing if you were to open up like Sibelius or Notion or Finale, it's the first thing at the first clef on the first ledger, and so they start with the highest part. But in reality, a lot of times, violin, it's better to do last because what we're going to want to do is we're going to build some structure, and then we'll allow the violin to have the counter melody. And if any of you know much about that, we'll talk about that a little bit as we go. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to watch this, but then I'm going to have you guys build your tracks. After you guys build your tracks, we're going to just set up some very basic instruments, and I'm going to guide you with which ones to build from. Now, if we were writing just a general song, like if we were just making just some sort of pop song, I would tell you that what do we have to start with to make a pop song? Typically, I like to start with a beat, right? Even if it's just mundane and looping, I like to start with a beat. Problem with that is when it goes to something like this, a beat's going to be a little too static and a little too mundane and not necessarily what we need. One of the things we're going to do on Wednesday, so we're going to build the skeletal structure. On Wednesday, we're going to do the arrangements, but we're also going to focus on swells. A lot of times the big things that you get out of trailers and out of film clips that have any kind of audio to it, like on a TV show or a movie, a lot of times you'll notice that just simple swells, even if they just use a cymbal and they just swell it, really does a lot for what's going on in the visual. So Wednesday we're going to focus on swells. Today we're just going to kind of focus on some basic elements of put it. So let me just show this to you. Did everybody already get this from the MTL? Did you guys find this? Chad, go onto the MTL server and get Star Trek Into Darkness. It's in my folder. So again, this has a basic temp file. that was that transition to 150 to 114. Sorry, it's lagging a little bit. One of the things you may have noticed at the transition and something we're going to build, you hear a lot of low-end drops or bass drops. A lot of those are used very easily just to drop in a lot of this impactful stuff. So we're going to build around those, but we'll probably, if we don't get to them today, we might do those Wednesday because we just need the core structure. I'll just be honest. When it comes to stuff like trailers, a lot of times the big beats and the big things that they drop make the whole thing. Problem with it is if you build the beats and the drops first, then you're trying to map out all the in-betweens and make them fit instead of making something that's nice or that works well and then dropping those beats in after, which honestly, when it comes to that, you literally will make a plug-in and you'll literally just go bam, and then you'll align it, and it's really simple and easy. So let's start with building our virtual instrument stack first, okay? Now, what we're going to need to do, all of these will be in stereo. For now, we're just going to make a very slim group of them, but we're going to add on to them on Wednesday. We may add as we go just today to kind of get our feet wet. What I'd like for you to do is mute the actual audio track that's here. All right, so if you mute the audio track that's here, and you'll notice there's a click track that's here with you. You can go ahead and unmute that because we will need it. Right after the click track, make sure the click track is selected. Command-Shift-N. Let's go ahead and make 10 stereo aux input tracks. Okay, we're not going to use all 10 likely today, but I want to have extras just set up so that we can jam through these. Okay, so we're going to get 10 stereo aux input tracks. Okay, and you can hit return. And away we go. Now again, what I like to do is I like to base these upon what kind of sounds good, what we can build from immediately. I think specifically, I kind of like the elongated kind of down-tempo string push at the front. Kind of gets that kind of like eerie kind of sound, and we can add extra effects to that in the end. What I want you to do is oh, how did I do that? Oh shoot. I'm sorry. I don't know why I did that. Do me a favor. Your 10 aux inputs that you just created, but I have you create 10 stereo aux inputs. Please delete those. I don't even know why I don't know what world I was in, but I meant 10 stereo instrument tracks. So you can just highlight those and delete those. Sorry. So you should have instrument tracks instead of aux inputs.
You said stereo?
Stereo, please. Yeah, the reason we're going to use stereo is because we could do them in mono, but a lot of the engines are built in stereo, so we have a little reverb built into the track in a stereo space. In your first instrument, I would like for you to just go ahead and call this viola. So we're going to start with viola. And our next one will be cello. Again, this isn't going to be the complete ensemble, but it's going to just be the bare bones. And then after that, I want you to write in on the third track, drums, okay? These are going to be really simple, but these are going to be fairly effective in getting us through this first section. Once you've done that, please move to the mix window because we're going to add some plugins, okay? Just double check this. Okay. Dylan, did yours open and then die, or was it already just? Okay. If it does it again, you might end up needing to jump back to one of those other stations. Okay, now that we're here, we're going to go ahead and build some quick, easy virtual instruments. Let's go ahead on the viola track. You're just going to go to multi-channel plugin. You're going to go to virtual, or I'm sorry, it just says instrument. We're going to use the Expand 2 options here. So the Expand 2 plugin in stereo. You'll open up Expand 2. And then this is what we're going to do. Once you have it, we're going to copy this amongst the two other tracks that we have. So we're going to start with just the 3 first, okay? And the reason we're not going to do it to all is just to save some DSP. How do I copy a track from copy a plugin from one track to another? To copy a plugin from one track to another, how do I do it? Do you guys remember? Almost. Nope. Option, right? Option, click, and drag. Okay? So all you're going to do is, for those 3, you just go hold Option, click the plugin, drag it to the next channel. Keep holding Option, click the plugin, drag it to the next channel. So you have 3. Does that make sense? Not too bad, right? And then hit Save. Now, I will say this, just as a warning, everything we do with video is DSP heavy in the same way we dealt with this with Ice Age, but because we're also adding virtual instruments, it just got to another level of DSP heavy. So the computers, you know, it's gonna struggle a little bit at times, just trying to keep everything together. So what I'd like for you to do is after every move you make today, hit Command S, okay? So after every move, okay? You edit a channel, Command S. You write a MIDI part, you know, you do a record pass, Command S. We just need to continually save it. As Dylan's already dealing with, his computer's already had a bit of a freak out moment. Yes, sir?
No, this thing might plug in.
Oh, just hit Browse. Sorry, we did this a long time ago. Yeah, just select the expand to, I think it's the one. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so what we're going to do with this, expand 2 comes with this, I'm going to record enable it. Comes with this by default, okay? And you could use this. You could go in and do this like weird wavy thing. You know, okay, but we're not going to do that today. Why? Because we're immediately going to move into parts, okay? So here's the difference. We're not going to be playing chords, okay? Because what we're going to do is we're going to isolate part by part. So we're actually going to be building what we call monophonic instruments. So we're going to build a viola playing one single note at a time, you know, and those notes will change, and a cello playing one single note at a time, so on and so forth. Okay. So what we're going to do first is we're going to go to the viola. So make sure you're on the plugin that's on the viola track. Go ahead and record enable it. And if you select the drop down here in Bank 1 or Bank A, MIDI channel 1, there's a drop down here. Go to strings, and what we're going to look for is, let's see, I think we want, I think you could use either big, let's see, let's try bigger legato. I'm just looking for something that sounds good. Yeah, that works for me. Okay, so I ended up doing strings, and I did the bigger legato strings plus. Yeah, that should be good. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add some reverb to this to make it a little more impressive. But again, it's in patch Bank 14 here. Bigger legato strings. Everybody find that so far? Okay. Now, what I'll likely do in this instance is I might actually elect in the cello part to use the same one, but I'm actually just going to play it in a different register. Here's what I want to do, though, to set this up a little better to just kind of make this work for us. Down in the bottom, you see something that says Effects 1, Effects 2. And if you look on the channel here, there's an Effects 1 knob and Effects 2 knob. I'm going to go ahead and activate Effects 1 by pushing the power button. Go ahead and do that for me real quick. It's right there at the bottom. And then what we're going to do is we're going to actually turn up the send for that Effects 1 so we get a little reverb on this patch before we start. All right, so we should be pretty good. So you kind of see, hopefully you activated it down there. Now you could change this to other types of rooms, you know, other effects, but we're not really going to be worried too much about that. We just kind of need something to get us going. Because obviously with this dry, it's a little too, feels a little too artificial, so we're going to kind of fake it just by giving it that extra little bit of something. Then what we can go ahead and do is let's go ahead and option drag this to the cello part. We're going to just use the same settings on this one. The only difference is on the cello, we're going to play down in the cello range. Not too bad, right? So I'll kind of guide you through that as we get there. And then in our last thing we're going to do, the final track that's drums, we're actually going to use these taiko drums. They're really pure and simple, just dumb drums. And I only call them dumb drums because they're
from a pitch standpoint, they're not really tuned very accurately. They're kind of designed to kind of have this bigger feel by not being accurate percussion items. Let's see. These are either in, I think, okay, they're in the percussion section. So this is the plug-in for drums on the drum track. You have, in order to hear it, you're going to have to record enable that third track. So, you know, you'll switch over from being on the viola to being on the drum. Open up Expand 2, and if you hit the drop down, go down to percussion, and pick one of these taiko drums. I think they're a little different. I would maybe do either taiko drums big 1 or taiko drums big 2. What you'll notice is that when you hit it or when you play it, it's not pitch oriented. It's like kind of just all assigned, which is cool. But again, it kind of does, it fulfills what you're going to be doing with it anyway. When you do the taiko drums, the beautiful thing, and the thing I always suggest, if you're trying to make big drums, if you want your drums very accurate, use a single finger. If you want big drums, pretend you have mittens on, and you're just literally going to go. Right? Pretty cool, right? But the cool part is when you're using multiple fingers, you're actually activating more than one hit, and it's flamming. It's got that kind of, instead of just going, right? It's really simple. That's why I usually don't use pads in that. I mean, unless you did a full hand on the pad. You know, but again, problem with it is that's too close of a hit. I kind of like that kind of feel. So there's that in a nutshell. All right, so we should be all set. Everybody got drums, cello, viola. Not nice and easy. Our click track should be nice and open. What we're going to do is let's go ahead and start designing this. Let's go ahead and start designing this. Again, I'm going to kind of just give you a step-by-step guide. If you feel like you're pretty solid and you're like, oh, you know, I don't necessarily need it. You know, you can follow along and branch out, but just make sure you stay with us from a productivity standpoint. Now, there's a couple things that are happening. If you look at you can look at mine instead of having to necessarily look at yours. I had to pull mine down, but my tempo map has a 56, and then there's another 56 marker. So here's what happens. I don't know if you noticed in the beginning of the original clip, it's not tempo conformed yet. Listen to what happens here. Sorry, get rid of this. All right, so did you see what happened to the front end? Nothing actually took off until we got to clip number 1 here. And if you remember your frame-by-frame nudging, I'm just going to activate that real quick. Just so you could see it. So nothing actually took off until our first frame. We kind of had this preemptive stuff going on. And that's where that first marker is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to grid. We would like to preferably use grid for this. I want you to activate your grid. I would like for you to switch to bars and beats in your main counter instead of having the time code, okay? Because time code is great for dropping in sync stuff, but for what we're going to be doing, we're actually going to be conforming to a tempo. Make sense? Okay, so you activated grid, you switch to your counter to bars and beats. Now I want you to change your grid value to quarter notes. So see up top where it says grid, you're just going to click on this the little box that says 1 and hit quarter note. Bam! Right? Nice and fun. And then let's go ahead and find the start marker. This is probably, let's see. Okay, I'm actually going to have you start, if you navigate to bar 3, beat 1. Bar 3, beat 1. What most people don't realize until they start doing this for the first time is that there's a lot of floated non-time conforming sections in video. Like moments where you just kind of have to make some noise or generate some sort of soundscape and wait for the moment where you actually lock into tempo. So what we're going to do first is we're going to build the stuff that belongs to tempo first, and then we're going to go back and throw in the stuff that is in those gaps. There's really only the front gap, and then there's the transition point right before we get to the big 114 tempo change. So what I'd like for you to do is I'd like for you to record arm. You can record on either the viola or the cello. I'm going to start with the viola. What I want you to do is, let's see, I'm going to get rid of this. Sorry. What I want you to do is I want you to bar 3, beat 1. This is where you're going to start, okay? So what I need you to do is I actually want you to back up. You could do a pre-click, but I want you to back up from bar 3, beat 1 to bar 2, beat 1. Make sure your click is on. So you basically what you're going to get is 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is start. Okay, does that make sense? So you're going to get this preemptive 1, 2, 3, 4, and start. Now I'm going to do something fairly slow, and if you know much about tempo, I'm just going to do this in bar sections. So like instead of making quarter note changes, because you hear how fast that would be, it would be each one. I'm just going to do these real slow, elongated things throughout the bar. So not necessarily a lot of movement just yet. We're going to save it for everything that's happening at the marker for BPM equals 114. Now, if you were to take your keyboard and look at the dead middle C note, okay? It's like right underneath pad. You see pad number 4? For those of you who aren't so familiar, see pad number 4? The note that's right under, the white key note that's right under pad number 4. Okay, that is where we're going to use our cello. If you skip up to the next octave, the key that looks like that, but one set up to the right, if you're not very familiar, that C, that's going to be where we start with viola. Okay, now you can do this in any key, but I'm just going to keep this. I'm just going to keep this in the key of C, all white keys, just to make it nice and easy for you guys. Okay, so it's not something crazy hard. But the catch is that I want to do this. Notice it's kind of darker. An easy way to get that darkness is to use the minor key. So what I'm going to do is, you saw the one that's under pad 4, that C, and then you went up an octave to the C above it. If you walk down 1, 2, you'll see A. And A should be this note, is the minor relative to C. So everything I do from here is essentially dark instead of bright, because it's all starting on that A. What I'd like for you to do is, I'm going to show you a pass. I'm just going to do some basic movements starting on A. Just make sure you all have that A. This one that we'll start on. Yeah, and then if you jump up do the A below, yeah, essentially that octave up C, because we're going to start with the viola part. I'm going to be up here. Yeah, you got it. And guys up front. Yeah, I think yours is just 1 octave up. Do the next instead of this one, do this one for viola, and you're good. Yeah, and I had everybody jump up to here and then walk back to here. So that's kind of where you're starting. So this one's going to be kind of your start. But again, you guys can do what you want, all right? Because this is your creative opportunity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do everything basically with the click. So you hear the click going. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to quantize it after I get through this. I'll go back and quantize it so it all fits correctly. But again, I'm starting on bar 2, beat 1. So you can just listen, and then I'm going to have you guys do a pass. I only have to make it, technically, to this section. And if I watch the video, there's a moment in time where it's going to hold. I think it looks like that hold could start as early as bar 9, beat 1. So if you count that out, that's not a lot of room. So let's just give it a whirl. If we hate it, we just do it again. Okay? So I'm activated. I'm just going to hit Command, space bar, give me 4 beats in. And here we go. All right, so pretty simple. I just essentially went to bar, 9, beat 1. Again, all I did was, if you watch what I did, I only played, 1, 2, 3. I only played 4 notes and then just went back to the first. But I'm just kind of trying to stay on the bar. After I'm done with that, all I'm going to do is go to event operations, quantize, and just say, hey, let's do a quarter note value because these are all quarter note values. I'm just gonna make sure everybody's locked to grid. Okay. I want you to go ahead and take a pass. You could do something very simple. Just kind of start somewhere in there in that range. You don't have to start on A. If you know a little more about music, you can use the black keys, but preferably you guys are just gonna use the white keys. Just arm it and try to make it from bar at the beginning. You start at bar 2, beat 1. You're going to try to get from bar 3, beat 1 to at least bar 9, beat 1, and we can work from there.
So you prefer us to work in middle C or?
Yeah, whatever, for the viola part. Just around, well, anywhere between here and here, preferably here. At least it's your starting point, right? Again, don't worry if you mess up, just do it again.
Link the video.
Oh, here, scroll up. The audio's up top, so like down here, and just scroll up on that window. Yeah, the audio's up top, so just want to hear. Yeah, done. Yeah. Miles, you doing okay? Sorry, I can't get back there. You doing okay? You doing okay?
Yep.
Sorry, I can't really get back there to see. Yeah, just want to make sure you're good. Dylan, you're okay, bud?
If you like your pass, if you've done a pass, just don't forget that you could always do a new one. If you click on the playlist section here and hit new, you can save your previous pass and do a new pass. That way you have a couple takes if you wanted to try a couple things. If you've already done a pass and you're still kind of waiting, I'm just waiting just a little bit. Give you guys a little more time to kind of generate your first real pass, what we're going to build from for the most part. Yeah, honey?
I don't think the meeting's recording.
Oh, you record and enable the track. Did you push command and spacebar?
Oh,
Oh, wait, here. Oh, because it's shut. Oh, sorry. It was shut off because of spotlight. Here's what you can do instead. If you bring out the. Oh, actually, you can do it here. You just hit this to essentially arm it again, and then hit play, and it'll roll. All right. So hit Command Z, just undo that. Okay, and then again, when you're ready, just click. Actually, you can hit spacebar, I think, now that it's activated. Yeah, exactly. And then you can just start playing on at the beginning of bar 3. Yeah, sorry about that. I forgot a lot of you guys still have Spotlight still turned on. That was an issue. So, Chad, though you can stack them up, make sure your stack's going to belong on the cello part if you're going to do a stack. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So that you can keep it. What you could do is you could. What I like to do when I build a stack on one lane is just in the viola you could just copy it over on the edit window,
Yeah.
paste it into the cello, and then just delete the parts that that belong to the other part.
Okay.
Yeah, same thing with yours here. So like, what we're gonna do is since you stacked them,
Yeah.
you're gonna do single note parts for this. We're just gonna take your stack and split it off into the shell like the other parts. Does that make sense? Everybody has a part.
Gotcha.
Is that cool?
Okay, yeah.
The other, cool, good, like it. How's it going? Good. All right, maybe like a couple more minutes, and then I'll just kind of show you how we get to the next part. Oh, if you're done, don't forget to quantize. Okay, you can just go to highlight the clip, go to event operations, quantize, and when you open it up, if you've done a lot of notes, 16th notes, quantize grid is fine. But if you were like me and you just did some simple slow stuff, just quantize it to the quarter note. Hit apply. It'll just snap the grid. All right, let's go ahead and let's save where you are. I'll let you go back, and if you want to go back and do more with this one part, you absolutely can. Let's go ahead and save where you are. Let's go to the cello part real quick. What we're going to do with the cello at this point is the same. It's going to be slow and it's going to be elongated. It's going to kind of match the part. When we get to the 114 marker, and this is the real reason why we don't do, essentially we try not to like multi-layer polyphony, multiple notes on one channel, is because when we get to the 114 mark, instead of them doing the same things, they're going to branch off and do their own things. And it kind of keeps them essentially parts-wise from getting too thick too soon, essentially, and allowing them that freedom to kind of do that. So we're going to go to the cello part. Now, watch what happens here. I'm going to now use, you guys use that range that was from pad 4 all the way up to that C above. For the cello, you're really going to want to stay in that, again, that C pad 4, and probably in somewhere anywhere in between there, and really like where it falls, that F falls under pad 1. It's kind of a tighter range. The only reason we're using a tighter range is to make sure that they don't overlap necessarily for what we're doing here. So again, we're going to use the note under pad 1, which is F, and then the note under pad 4, somewhere in there. I'm not going to record at the moment. I'm just going to try a few things out. And you should probably do this when you add your second part, is don't record immediately, just kind of figure out where you want to be. Well, let's just give it a whirl and see what we can do. Let's see. Let's try that out. I think I'm going to do... So So once I have it, I'm basically just going to track it again. I want you to go ahead and test some things out. When you're ready to do it, just go ahead and put it to print. Go ahead and record it. But I wouldn't waste a lot of tracks recording until you kind of find the sweet spot for where you want to be. I think I'm maybe 1 or 2 passes away from figuring out the notation on mine.
Okay, let me go ahead and you guys can say where you're at. Hopefully your ideas were somewhat solidified a little bit more with that pass through. In some instances, and I just, for me, I like to simplify the process. I ended up just doing, for my cello part, I did a droning A until the very end where the upper viola part stood still, and then I dropped it. So that there was a little less movement at the front end and a little more movement towards the transition, but it's going to kind of get still, and then it's going to get busy at the transition. What I want you to do is go to your drums, your taiko drums. If you can open that or record enable the drums and then open the expand. I want to just have you add a little bit of flair to this so we can give this a little bit of dimension. What we're going to do is we're going to, on the effects 2, we're going to add some delay to kind of give it this kind of feel, not so dry, because before it's just this, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually start by adding the hall. So we can turn the hall reverb on, turn the effects up for the hall. And then after that, I'm going to activate effects 2, but I'm going to switch it to, and you could use any number of things. I did the lo-fi ping pong, and I turned effects 2 up pretty substantially. Well, all we need to do is change the delay time. We could leave it slow, so let me show you this with it slow. Here it's cycling through. I'm just hitting it those instances. So you can do it in that form, or you could do it. So that's a quarter note. Notice if I hit the delay time, it says it down at the bottom. Quarter note. Let me try an 8th note triplet. And that's what 8th T is. It's this. So let's give that a whirl. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's start from that sync point one more time. Oh, I'm sorry, it's too soon now. So as long as these bounce, and we could do, let's see, we could try one more. We'll try one on an 8th. Now, it's not going to be as loud in the mix when we're ready. So let me just stop this real quick, kick it over from that spot. So let's say I do record this. I can go ahead and turn this down now. You can either kind of blend it into the mix now or later, but I'm going to go ahead and pull it down in the middle now. And I'm just I think I might like 8th, but I can switch back and forth between 8th and quarter note not as I go, but like after I track it. Now I won't quantize this because I want it to be I want it to be flammy. Now, the only weird part about it is that tempo change, so I just need to tighten that up. Again, I don't necessarily want to quantize it, but I do want to make it a little tighter to the grid. So, I might just those tempo changes kind of throw it off just a little bit because you can kind of hear it was
was getting a little ahead at some points. But let's go take a look. Not too bad there. See, you can see how all these strikes are kind of variable, which is good. So far, so good. Oh, there's the one. You see how far off that is? Can you guys see this? This right here. Here's the grid, and this is where it should be, and this is where it's at. You see it? So I could just essentially cut it, Command X, Command V, and then I can nudge it using my. You guys remember the nudge value, right? So I could just switch over, make sure my nudge. I'm going to move my nudge into time code and put it at 1 frame, so I can just nudge, 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 right? And then I can just kind of find our sweet spot. Cool, not too bad. Rolling down to the next one. Oh, yeah, you can see it's a little bit of a head. I'm going to cut it. Command X, Command V. Same thing here, right? So Command X to cut, just toggle down. Oops, sorry, I don't know where it went. There. Command V, and again, I'm going to use my nudge value, my comma, and my period to just land. I might not even do that final downbeat. I might end up killing that. So let's take a look. So from the beginning of that section, right now I'm on 8th note, okay? So, and I could automate it if I wanted to. Sorry, computer's having trouble hanging with the tempo change. All that little clicking that you hear is just the computer struggling to map that tempo change a little bit. But that's good. I might end up just using quarters. But you kind of see how that worked out, right? You're going to want to manually align it to the grid instead of using quantize. But again, all I was doing again was just 2 hands, nice and easy. I'm not necessarily smacking it for this because it's not dynamically loud yet. Just kind of giving it a little. But that delay really adds that extra flair to it. And if you wanted to swamp it out more, you could still pull in more delay by just giving more effects too. All right, go ahead and give that a whirl. Make sure you're saving as you go. We'll try to get some drum action in there just to kind of give it a little bit of flair. I mean, nice and simple. Doesn't need to be crazy. Just nice and simple. Good touch. Yeah.
How do I launch out as the first one?
Okay, so just double click it. Okay, and then you go to event at the top. Yeah, event operations, the third one down. Yep, and there's quantize. Just a question of, so you can quantize it to 16. It's just a question of how close these, like, did that need to be there, or is it good? Is it pretty close? If it's really close, use 16. If it's like a little far off, maybe go down to quarter. But if you feel like it's pretty close, just hit apply. It'll just bump to the nearest 16. You can do the same thing down here. It looks to me like from what I see that you might just be a little off. So you might want to try this quarter. But if you don't like it, just undo it. Okay. So and then hit apply, and then you can do the same to this one. It'll probably bump the same way. And then just hit apply again, and then push play. See if you like it, great. If you don't, undo it. Just do it in 16 forms. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks.
How do you, if you like want to score a film, how do you like where you send music to?
Well, it is a very competitive field. There are agencies. You know, you could hire an agent, just like being an artist. A lot of
agents do?
they'll book you
Oh.
essentially. But the thing is unfortunately, at the lower level, there's a lot of agents that want to put you on their roster. They're not as interested in booking you because you should only pay an agent when an agent books you, and some agents charge you a monthly fee, but that's because they're just really looking out to make money on you. So like, if you have to be at a certain level in order to be able to get an agent to support you, because they're going to go out and pitch you. So I mean, you need to build a portfolio, reach out to either an agent. A lot of times they'll say like an entertainment lawyer sometimes is a good contact to use as an agent or to develop a relationship with, because you can't go to the film studios, because what happens is that typically a music supervisor chooses the composer for a film. The music supervisor is essentially usually staffed by the director of a film, so or the producer or executive producer. But those individuals don't usually belong to a specific film studio, because they're floating between all of them with whatever movie they're on. So a lot of times you have to pitch to a music supervisor. But the problem is like when a music supervisor gets hired, they typically already have a small pool of people in mind to do their film. So it's hard. It's a real hard start until you really get something. So in the meantime, like while you're working on it, there isn't really a place you can send to that just gets you jobs automatically. So a lot of times you have to. It's best to just seek out independent filmmakers and just team up with them and say, hey, look, you're a director. I want to do music for film. You have anything I can work with you on? It's a really low-paying gig on the front end at that level, but once you get in and you get going and you have roster, and once you do a couple films, then you really can get in to the scene, and then you have opportunities. I mean, like a front end, and people that are doing independent films are making like maybe $1 to $5 grand a film. Once you get up into the upper echelons, like a lot of guys start on TV, and they'll do music for TV instead of movies right away, and they'll then make a certain amount of money. Like if you made the jingle or the theme song or whatever, the theme song will pay out pretty well, and then everything else it's kind of ramping up towards being almost like a full-time paid gig. And then there's residuals for TV, especially if it gets syndicated, in other countries. For film, though, once you get into film, like once you're on a big budget film, you could stand to make, 100, 200 grand on a film. But a lot of budgets are what they call all-in budgets, which means if they say, hey, we're going to pay you 450 grand to do the music for a film, that includes you going out and booking a studio and hiring all the musicians, and so like you take that budget and you shell that out to get the job done, and whatever's left is what you receive as compensation. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like there's a fluctuating tipping point there, but to transition into that kind of money, you got to have like you have to have a wealth of experience. I mean, and just to give you just a realistic vision of it, some of the biggest names right now, like Hans Zimmer, Alan Silvestri, Michael Giacchino. I mean, those guys have been doing it since you were a kid. You know what I mean? And right now, they're just getting the biggest films. In the last 10 years, they've been getting the biggest films of their career. So Michael G is a great example.
What has he done?
He just did the new Rogue One. He did Rogue One. He's the first non-John Williams to do a Star Wars movie. But he did Star Trek. He did all the scores for the new Star Trek series. But he started on Alias. I don't know if you ever saw the show Alias. Old. Alias was on when I was like in high school. He started on Alias, and then he got Lost. Lost was his first big show. From there, he's done like Ratatouille. He's done like there's a whole handful of films. Super 8. There's a ton of films that he's done if you look him up. But Alan Silvestri is another example. I mean, Alan Silvestri's like 60 now, and he did a lot of like the big blockbusters like the Avengers and some. I think he did one of the Thors, where you look at Hans Zimmer. Hans Zimmer's 60 something, and it's like Hans Zimmer was his first big breakout movie was The Lion King, and that was made when we were all kids. You know what I mean? You guys were probably in diapers when Lion King was made. You know what I mean? So it's like it takes time, but you just keep working towards it. You know what I mean? Like so that's what a lot of these guys do. They realize it's going to take 20 years to get a big film, but I mean, like once you get that far deep into it, it's like these guys are making millions of dollars a year on just the residuals from the stuff that they have done in the past. You know what I mean? It's like now they're out there doing it for the heck of it. You know what I mean? They're doing it for fun. And that's why some there's a lot of composers that you never hear from again. They're already retired. They're just done. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity. It's just kind of the break in.
Yeah,
But all those big guys have agents. Even the small guys have agents. Just trying to get them on TV. You have to have someone doing the pitch. But you have to have a portfolio to have them pitch. But that's how it typically works. It's just a bit of a struggle over the hump. But you got to be in LA. You really got to go to LA and meet people.
Why LA?
It's just because it's like everybody knows everybody. And so it's like, when they're having conversations and they're like, who should we use for this or for that? It's like, oh yeah, I know a guy. And he's, I can call him up right now. He'd meet us, and it's that kind of town. It's like, they don't want to wait a week for something. They want it tomorrow. Most of the time when a budget's approved and all the funding gets done, what do they do first? They don't make the music. They make the movie. And then they're always months behind on the movie. And then they're like, all right, we're ready to have someone score it. I know I was reading an article on Michael Giacchino's Rogue One, and this happened with like Pirates of the Caribbean. Same thing. They had an original composer. They didn't like him, so they fire him. And then they were like 2 months into it, behind. So they gave him like 3 weeks to do the whole thing from the ground up and record it. But you're doing it for like a 2-hour movie. That's a lot. So like that happens a lot too. So it's just all about having the ability to. One of the guys I talked to, because I went out to LA trying to do some stuff. One of the directors I talked to said the biggest thing that helps him, he just has to know he has a composer that he can pay, that will use the right studio, that'll use the right musicians, that knows all the right connections to do all the best work. Because he has to trust that person to do all the booking for the whole thing, get it all set up. You know what I mean? Not someone that's just going to get people that they don't know or just hire some random studio, but people that have experience with hiring a studio, hiring musicians, paying the musicians, doing all the legal sides of the contracts and having all that done. And if they hire 20 people to do it, great. They just have to have that experience in staffing the team. Okay, at this point in time, obviously we only have 5 minutes. What I'd say personally, I think you guys should just continue developing your ideas here in the front end and kind of clean it up. What you could do, what I would suggest in your next step, let's just go ahead and we can create an ambience on instrument 4, real simple. I'd like to do the lead up to the some basic lead up to the beginning of your downbeat here. So you could actually use, let's see if we do this ambience. I'm just going to call it ambient. Again, it's instrument 4. I'm gonna option click my expand, and there's a lot of cool stuff that they have in expand. It's a little more ambient oriented. Obviously, you don't want aliens. Let's see. I'm gonna try ambient resonance. Let's see what this one's like. Maybe not that. Well, maybe I'll just take the factory default for now. Ooh, okay, never mind. Forgot it was so digital. Shoot, well, let's see. All right, maybe I'll take something in pad layers land. I'm just going to take the spooky one to get it done. So we could switch this out. I'm just going to need my video clip to come in from the beginning. So I'm actually going to take this from the beginning. This thing is not to tempo, so I'm going to just mute my click. So I'm just going to kind of throw something in. Again, it probably needs to be in the same key, so I'm going to use A. But I'm going to do the A octave up and just let this roll. Actually, hold on. I'm going to do this. Sorry, I need to do this to picture, so I'm going to wait till that clip comes in. So you'll see that. So while the video is pulling by, I'm just going to add this little touch to that when the clip comes in. So I'm going to wait till that goes out. All right, and then what I might want to do is, on my next track, I might actually just do an extra ambience 2. And almost the same thing, but have something queue up on that bad robot frame. Let me get something else other than spooky here. Let's see, pad layers, pad layers, pad layers. No, not so great. Oh, let's try it. All right, so same thing from the beginning. So I'm just using under pad layers this rhythm choir thing. I'm going to do it the octave down though. So I'll let this thing cue off. And more than likely, from a volume automation standpoint, I can immediately see that all of what's going on right here is a little too loud. So I'm probably going to want to bring some of this in a little bit. I mean, obviously this hits a little too much. Well, you know, the only thing I will say is I might actually just do, sorry, I know we're pretty much done here, but what I'm going to do is I might actually just do this whole thing throughout so that it kind of connects us a little better. This little high-pitched one that's in right now. And just keep going with it. And then just do the end one here. You guys can go ahead and save your stuff and pack it up. All right, a little bit of quantizing and we're good. All right, on Wednesday, if you guys saved everything, on Wednesday we're going to come back. We're just going to move on to the next section. We'll tidy everything up and we should be good to go. Any questions? I know today was kind of active. Make sure you save this and you're good to go. Thank you for the sign-in sheet. I'll see you guys Wednesday. Very productive.